Hi everyone, today let's talk about GameStop again. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So E-Trade is debating on whether to ban Roaring Kitty from their platform or Keith Gill for those who know him by his actual name. Honestly, I think this is absolutely ridiculous, and I know it's not really related to the broader markets, but I just want to talk about this because it's absolutely insane to me that a company like this would ban a stockholder from their platform simply because he owns a large position in a specific stock and he continues to talk about why he likes this stock. It's actually crazy to me that this was even put out in the first place, and E-Trade said that declined to actually talk about it publicly, but they're concerned about financial crimes. It doesn't seem to me like there's any financial crimes here. I just want people to know that this is potentially going on, and it's absolutely insane in my opinion. Moving over to fear and greed, you can see we stepped up here a little bit today. We are at a 51. Previous close was a 48. Looking at momentum, still greed, really hasn't changed there. Fear on strength, fear on breadth, so really no changes there either. Volatility had a very slight tick higher. Safe haven demand switched to fear, which is interesting. And then we saw junk bond demand surge into extreme greed, which is also interesting. I think that's partly because we saw yields go a little bit lower here today, but we did get a switch on bonds. Moving over to the economic data, you can see global U.S. manufacturing PMI came in better than expected at a 51.3, continuing to grow there. We also got ISM manufacturing PMI and manufacturing prices. Those missed pretty heavily. Manufacturing PMI well below the 50 mark, not great there. Prices continue to rise at a 57, a little bit slower than the expected, which is good. And then looking at tomorrow, we do have JOLTS job openings at 10 o'clock. That'll give us our first look at the unemployment data here for this week. Again, looking for soft jobs to push up markets. Strong jobs market will probably be a little bit bearish. Moving over to max pain here for the QQQ, you can see 450 as a put wall and then 460 as a call wall. We dipped below that 450 level and then we rallied pretty aggressively. So that level continues to be relevant, and I think it's going to continue to be relevant this week. And then looking at the S&Ps, you can see tons of puts here at 520, continues to be a strong level. 525, some there as well, and then you can see calls at 530. So stuck between 520 and 530, 525 being your midpoint and your max pain for this week. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we rolled to the downside, hit the trend line, caught a bounce. 524.23 was the level, held that level, pushed right above the next one, 527.35. You can see the candle, gap higher, wick to that low, held that level again. Momentum still bearish here, technically bullish on the candle, sitting right on top of that 9 EMA, 527.81. And that's basically where we are after hours, almost to the penny. Again, if we see this roll to the bull side tomorrow, that could give you a little bit more evidence for a rally in my opinion. But right now the momentum is a little bit bearish. I think we're going to see something like this here, where you got to swing up, slight bearish again, and then swing to bullish. In this case, we're getting a swing down, very slight bullish momentum, step higher, and then we'll probably see this push higher based on today's candle. We expected a little bit of a bullish candle, and that's what we got. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see slightly bearish candle here on the SPY. Held that 8 EMA again, held the test of the 21. So again, slightly bullish there. And then looking at the 4-hour chart, you can see that same candle to the downside, hit the first ATR band to the downside, and then bounced right back into the middle of the range. So really no change from the Friday candle, sideways choppy action with another failed dip low. Moving over to the NASDAQ, very similar thesis, dipped low, pretty aggressive, got all the way down to 448 after topping out up around 455. So that's a pretty big move from top to bottom. You can see it here, intraday price action, that's about 1.5%, so pretty wide-ranging day. Not as wide-ranging as what we saw here on the Friday session, that was about 2%, so pretty choppy intraday price action, and then we ended up finishing slightly positive on the day, about 0.5%. Momentum here is still bearish, so that's what we're trading off of, at least in the short term. Daily momentum, a little bit concerning there. The trend is still technically bullish, but we're below that 9 EMA. Expect at least one more push down tomorrow, I would guess. And then you have that overhead resistance here on the hourly chart at the 200, which is your 454.44 level. If we break out above that level, we could push to the all-time highs once again, up around 460. But right now we are waiting for that level to break, and it hasn't quite yet. Then moving over to the Tasty charts here on the 4-hour, you can see ATR resistance is still that 454.76 area. We tried to get above it early in the session, could not, rejected from that level, and that is an important stop for me right now. If we get above that, we're probably pushing higher, potentially up into the 460s. If we reject from here, we're probably headed back to the low that we saw on that Friday session. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell was down 0.56. You can see big wick to this upper level, got all the way up to 207.50, and then we sold off, finishing down around 204.60. Almost touched that 55 EMA. You can see it there at 202.92. Didn't quite get there. Momentum is back to bearish. RSI, it's been chopping sideways for a while, but it's technically bearish. And then you can see the Dow also down 0.33, rejecting off that 387.77 level. Momentum still swinging to bullish here, as it wasn't as strong of a bearish candle, and it really didn't go that much higher. So again, want to see it get above 387.77. If it can, then we're looking for another push higher. If it continues to reject from here, we're probably headed lower. Moving over to stocks that moved here today, we got Southwest Airlines up 3.17, and then Carnival Cruise. This was on the list not that long ago, but it's up again 6.17%. Had a really powerful day back here on 20 May, pulled back to that 21 EMA, held that zone, and now we're pushing higher. You would expect to break out from this previous high, and if it does get above 1620 or so, we could be looking for a push back up to 1750. Carnival looks like the better setup here in my opinion. Southwest Airlines dipped all the way down to around 2460, and it's back to 2770. This is still a downtrend. It just had a pretty strong day here today, and that's 3 strong days in a row. It's back into the middle of what you would call this range in my opinion. 200 SMA sitting there at 28.48. Doesn't look as good. Momentum is bullish, so maybe it gets a continuation, but between these two, I would pick Carnival. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, you can see Apple had a nice day, 0.93 to the upside, momentum swinging to bullish. It's above the trend line here. It's above my level, 193.96. So clean breakout there, looking for 197, potentially 198 zone. That would be right at these highs back here from January of this year. So Apple looking good there. Tesla continues to do nothing in this range. If this doesn't do something soon, I might even take it out of the rotation. It's been chopping sideways since all the way back here at the beginning of March, and now here at the beginning of June, we are in that same trading range. Moving over to Microsoft and NVIDIA, you can see Microsoft continues to go lower, 0.39 to the downside, momentum still bearish. Still at the level 413, if that breaks, probably headed down to that 144 EMA at 399.48. And then looking at NVIDIA, we got news about their new chips, the Rubin chips. And on that news, it jumped almost 5%, probably headed to this trend line here at 1200 or so. Momentum, flat, RSI ticking higher. Like I said, I think the trend is where we're going. Moving over to Meta and Amazon. Meta had a good day as well, 2.28% to the upside, momentum swinging back to bullish. Talked about this rally consolidation, probably going to rally here, looking for a breakout above that SMA. 489.67 is the next level. If we can get above that 55 EMA, looks good. RSI looks good, like I mentioned. And then Amazon. So this is a little bit interesting. Still very much a downtrend in the short term. You can see that Friday candle hit the level, 174.23, almost to the penny. Looked very similar to this candle back here from 19 April. And then we gapped higher and rallied, 1% higher here. Really, this doesn't change the structure at all. Maybe you could look for a one-day continuation up to the 9 EMA. That would be up around 180.70 or so. Momentum did swing to bullish a little bit, so again, maybe a short-term little rally there, but Meta looks better out of these two. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you can see staples was down 0.04, discretionary is 0.05, so basically flat between the two. And you can see after hours staples is down and discretionaries is higher, so it seems like we're kind of heading into a little bit more risk-on environment after this most recent move lower. Maybe at least for a couple days, head to the highly traded zone here on discretionaries up at 178.20 or so. And then staples is still in a holding pattern until it can get back above 77.50. Moving over to transports and oil and gas. Both of these had a pretty terrible day, to be honest. 1% down on transports, 2.8% down here on oil and gas. We had the OPEC decision this weekend. I did a couple of shorts on that. They're very concerned about interest rates and demand for oil. If they increase their supply and push prices down, that's going to be bad for them. So right now they're continuing to hold supply lower, which is keeping prices higher. I thought that would be a little bit more bullish here for oil and gas stocks, but you can see big volume, big selling, down 2.8. Doesn't look great. Next level of support, 145.92. And then transports, I wonder if they're being affected by that same decision. 1% down, hit the level 63.22, so that is your current support. You can see that trend line sitting down there as well. This is a zone of support, but overall this is still very much a downtrend, and it doesn't look great, especially with that volume, massive volume there on a bearish candle. Moving over to oil and copper, you can see that bear candle on oil, so makes sense why oil oil and gas stocks were down. Again, I thought restricting the supply would push this higher. Makes sense economically, but oil has just been in a pretty solid downtrend, up at $88 or so. It's fallen all the way down to 74. Next level for me, 73. If that breaks, we could be headed lower, 66.50, or these previous lows around 68.68. And then you can see copper futures, kind of a bellwether for the economy, caught a bid here today. It's been on a pretty decent downtrend on the daily chart, but momentum swinging back to bullish. You can see first step towards bullish. That's a good indicator. Got a step towards bullish on the candle as well. Want to see this push above that 21 EMA. That's up at 477. If it can do that, that should be a bullish indicator. Moving over to Breadth, you can see Breadth was actually negative on the day, despite the semi-decent rallies that we saw across markets. Definitely concerning coming off of that 9 EMA. If this sells off here tomorrow, that's going to be quite bearish. Momentum says we're still in good shape. RSI says we might not be, breaking down well before we got to that SMA on both of these. We'll see how it plays out. Right now, you would have to argue for a continuation lower off that hanging man candle, in my opinion. Moving over to the dollar, absolute dumpster fire here on the dollar, down 0.5%. Momentum switching to bearish. RSI looked terrible. Super oversold here on the hourly chart. What a move. Very, very bearish. You could argue 1, 2, 3 pushes here now. So that could be a finishing push. Look for a little bit of consolidation and then potentially a slight bounce. You also got the 55 EMA sitting there at 103.95. So interesting here, but the big news is that trend line broke, 21 EMA broke, so this is definitely bearish in the short term. Just looking at that zone as a potential support at that 55 EMA. If this continues to break down here as it looks like it might, that could be quite bullish for equities. Moving over to yields, we got another down day here. So again, still in this very solid consolidation. We've been here for a bit now. Both of these got into this range on that 10 April candle, right in that same zone of support. 4.35 on the 10-year, and then 4.8 here on the 2-year. Technically below it on the 2-year, actually, which is a little bit bullish for equities potentially. Momentum on both of these bearish, RSI bearish, so it looks like they might be going a little bit lower. We do have some support levels in there at the 200, but technically they look a little bit bearish in my opinion. Moving over to bonds, J&K doing not much of anything, slightly bearish, right in the same trading range. TLT, on the other hand, catching a massive bid, rolling to bullish, right to that trend line. If it's going to break out, you'd want to see it do it here. Still got the 200 sitting up there at 92.06, my level 92.82. If it breaks above that, 96.50 would be above it. Right now, it looks pretty good, honestly. Bonds could be in play, looking for that clean breakout. Moving over to volatility, you can see both of these actually were positive on the day, threw a big wick higher, then pulled back a little bit. I think we'll probably see another continuation here. It's basically your inverted hanging man candle. It's right at that 9 and 21 EMAs. We're technically above it, so that would argue for a slightly bullish trend there. You can also see the move index going higher here today as well. So see how that plays out. Looks like volatility is probably going to go a little bit higher tomorrow, in my opinion. Moving over to my accounts, I was doing pretty well, honestly, until we got that last candle of the day. When we were sitting in that 450 area, I was doing just fine. And then you can see I had a little bit too much calls here, and then we had that really strong push right at the end of the session. It's about a $2 push, which was aggressive. And unfortunately, that put me in a bad spot here. So you can see basically $670 worth of losses. So all of those losses came in right at the end of the session, which is not great at all. I did get whipsawed a little bit intraday, but really the bulk of my losses were at the end of the session. Obviously, the puts were making a little bit of money and the shares were making a little bit of money, but I was just too bearish. You can see my deltas here at minus 81, so that's not great at all. Technically, the Qs are still in bearish conditions on the Tasty charts. And if that zone of resistance holds, I'll be in good shape for tomorrow. But if we break above that 454 area, I'm going to have to take all these calls off and flip to bullish. So going to have to keep a plan on for that. We'll see how it plays out. Right now, I'm not in a great position if we continue to rally, obviously. And then IWM, slightly bearish position there as well. I did sell a call spread at 206 to 211, trying to trade a little bit better here. I do have a put on for 2 days from now at 203 for 61 cents. Right in the middle of the range, gonna leave it for right now and see how it plays out. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the GameStop Saga 2.0. Should Fidelity take Roaring Kitty off of their platform, or is that absolutely insane? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.